today, we are in conversation with Mr. Siraj Ali Mohammed. Siraj is the Director, Data and AI at Experion Technologies. Let's find out what his opinions are on AI disrupting the B2B space.
Hi, Siraj. Greetings. So welcome to this session. Thanks for joining. So we have been working with various clients and prospects from different industries, technical backgrounds, and maturity levels in data and AI. AI is growing to be so pervasive, and I would love to hear your thoughts on the space in B2B sector. So when we looked through the potential topics for today, you picked up disruption in AI, disruption in B2B with AI. Can you share your thoughts on why you found this topic interesting and what do you think is so special about B2B?
Thank you, Banati. Thanks for having me. Good to be here. It's an interesting topic, right? Because when you talk about B2B as a focus area or as a sector, I think it's something that we are seeing a lot of natural interest in, purely from a factor of, like, for example, if you look at the retail space, you find a lot of B2C customers who are actually a lot more advanced in their thinking around how they approach their customers, the whole experience that they give a lot of focus in. And these B2C customers are now today your professional buyers too, right? So they expect that same level of experience or fun elements of interacting with a business to be part of your B2B world as well. So that's one area, right? So you're seeing a lot of B2C participants or players transitioning into the B2B world. And then you and I know, for example, there's a lot of millennials who are coming into the business world today, and they expect everything to be on an app and you can swipe through, all of that side of things. So as a player in the market, as a partner who's actually working with customers, I think B2B is seeing all of that transition purely from a customer expectation perspective, right? Now, there are a few other angles too to this. I mean, the big one, the big elephant in the room is actually COVID-19, right? So what COVID's actually brought to us today is that it's kind of disrupted the world of business that we are all used to, right? Budget allocation is no longer the same that you would have done many years ago, right? So your marketing officers are kind of running around the world, kind of thinking, well, where do I put my priorities on? Like, am I going completely digital or do I go in person? Should I be bringing up with apps and experiences that customers can kind of go with, even without being in a location in person? That's all really interesting challenges, right? So there's a transition that COVID's actually brought about, moving us from a very physical, a traditional way of doing a business to a more digital side. And then finally, I would say that whole customer experience point that we talked about, that is enhancing various parts of that sort of B2B world, as I look at it today. So if you think about, for example, supply chain, how it's very common for someone to place an order and then expect that you have to have a tracking process as you go through. You completely understand where your order is at any point in time. You would expect that the content is really personalized so that it's actually focused on you as a buyer, right? As a professional buyer. I'm expecting that the B2B sales, as a result of all of these things, that the B2B sales will increase significantly, right? So there's a lot of action going on in B2B. And unfortunately, because the customer has not been at the front, it's been a unattractive space for a long time. And I think now you will see a lot of action. So when we, like you rightly pointed out, when we talked about topics, I thought B2B and AI is definitely one area for us to focus in, because there's going to be a lot of action there. It's not going to be probably the industry that will see a lot of benefits coming out of AI, but definitely a lot of focus from an AI and data professionals perspective.
And there is a lot of activity happening there. But on the other hand, we have these decision makers in B2B who, in other sense, is a B2C customer, a customer to the modern retail e-commerce style of business, somehow or some other, on some other side. So the expectation will be also high. And there will be a lot of competitive pressure from the booming business on the B2C side, retail, modern retail chains, and also from the customer expectations. From your perspective, what are some of the key benefits that AI can offer in this context to B2B? What has changed in AI and what makes it exciting here in B2B?
Definitely a lot, right? So, and I take that question with a bit of a expansion to it, and I'll add some elements of data into it as well. Because if you think about the B2B space, there's a lot happening, or the lot that the businesses can catch up around data in general too. So let's start off with advances in technology that we are seeing these days, right? And we'll start with data capture. Anything that brings data into your ecosystem, be it around your customer, their preferences, their personalization, all of that sort of things, be it around your orders, your supply chain, the logistics around it, etc. There are methods for you to be able to track some of these processes or progress in your business much more effectively. So you're able to implement things like live tracking. You're able to bring a lot of accurate and efficient data capture. So there is no longer a question about data quality as to how you see it. Image processing is able to bring a lot of easiness and automation into the business that you do. And all of this is possible to achieve at very low cost and at a high scale that you can grow out your business in. So that's one, advances in technology, right? Then you look at the data storage and the processing capabilities. That has grown much simpler compared to what we used to do many years ago, right? So if you think about even large databases and the cost of having data warehouses and storing that data available for analysis versus today they talk about, just store it because it's easier to come back and process it at a later point in time than losing the data today, right? So at your cost, you'd actually just take it and store it. So that's second, so data storage. Then the key element, I think, is all around business users and how they interact with AI. So back in the days, you would have thought, if I'm a business, head of finance or head of marketing, I just don't have enough tools or data or insights at my fingertips to be able to go back and make really powerful or more even challenging or bold moves in the industry, right? But today, with all these tools that are available in the market, and even Altair has, so many products offering that is capable of fetching data with a few clicks and then automating the process so that even if the data is existing in a PDF or a file elsewhere, you're able to automate all of that and then analyze that data as it comes in to help you bring out insights, right? So that distance between a business user and all your data and analytics and AI in general has reduced significantly. And then if you go into the further advanced mode, I think things like, for example, statistical modeling has actually just grown far manyfold. Deep learning and reinforcement learning, etc., is just able to bring not just predict better, but they're able to identify influences of what is feeding into your current performance of the business and how you can improve that going forward. So there are all of these elements. And then you think about a final point, I think I'll say, is probably the more operationalizing element of it, right? So if you say, all right, I can do this once and I can look for insights and come back and tell you today how it should be done. But how do I make this a practice, right? So ML ops today allow you to go away and build systems that are capable of retraining itself and then improving the output that you would see. So in a nutshell, I'd say, has AI grown? It has grown far many-fold in terms of what we've seen from where the businesses used to do earlier. And even B2C and other businesses that we see are still in the early stage of reaping out the benefits from it. I think B2B has definitely a lot of potential to get out from AI.
Thanks, Raj. So that makes absolute sense. And it's very interesting too. So we can recall about the insurance project, the engagement where we are using some of these techniques, advanced techniques to gain better a better performance optimization on the operations side. And obviously, a lot of functionality is going in there from AI side, which is improving the prediction and improving the business operational speed at their end. Obviously, those are the good sides of it. If you think about the challenges associated with any industry to start getting into AI, advanced data, making use of advanced insights from the data, what all could be some of the highlights of those challenges and threats that you can point out?
I think very good question. I think what I would say is actually that complacency towards not having to change, right? Or you're getting comfortable in what you're doing today. We touched upon COVID a bit earlier, and in terms of how that disrupted. Let's take the example of Amul as a player in the market. If you think of it, they're a very large enterprise, right? If you think of it, I think something like about 10,000 distributors, over 1 million retailers, so many milk tankers that kind of go out, and the number of participants in that ecosystem is quite high. As an organization, the other day I was reading a case study on how they had embraced this digital transformation quite early on, making them really agile to face any new changes or challenges that the industry throws back at them, and got with it like really ready for COVID-19. Things like, even just changing the way, for example, as COVID hit, people didn't want to have more ice creams probably, right? Because it was cold and it's going to affect you, bring you probably more prone to the flu. And they kind of were able to repurpose some of that sort of assets that they had within the organization to look back at how they could probably improve the milk distribution side of things. And again, this was only possible because they were able to correlate some of the findings that they were finding from the market, and then repurpose whatever assets that they had to moving into a better place. So I think the biggest threat is actually being complacent around, I'm okay right now, and it's been working with my business today. I've got a great product, so it's definitely gonna sell. Suppliers will always give me the items, raw materials that I need. I'm always gonna have downstream players who are always gonna be interested in my products. That is likely to change. COVID or other external factors are likely to be able to. Now, coming back and looking at it from a pure business perspective, I think increasing competition is another one when you think about threats that's coming into the market. So we talked about how B2C players are slowly starting to getting into this space, and how they bring along a lot of these fancy applications and tools and toys that people really like and love. That coming into the B2B space will be a tough competition. I think the players in the market today have got to get ready with that. The other big element is actually operational efficiency and how you improve that through various technologies and things that you need to do, right? So how do you bring about technical aspects or current solutions or systems that can help improve your things like your reach back to your customers? How do you increase your stock availability just by looking at how you enhance your warehousing or your logistics? And we'll can probably touch upon some of that in more details. Two other threats that I find, and again, it's very true to me as a services player, talent, right? Because it's not easy to find when you want to improve your AI capabilities. The first things that people are going to go look out for is, I need data scientists, right? I need people who can speak and understand the language of statistics and try to find insights in areas where I probably am not going to look for it at all times, right? So how do I find that people? Finding the right people is always hard, one. And then obviously these days we know retention is really hard as well, because people, there's a lot of interest for that skill set in the market. I think there are different ways you can look at it, but even comparing between an in-house capability that you would grow and considerations of how you would bring external supply into that, so consultants or service providers into that mix and getting that all sorted out, that's going to be a big challenge, I think, from a talent perspective. One other, just as I was explaining it, I can see there's a whole planning solution that you need to go around and look for. What I mean by that is every company that embarks onto an AI journey, or every player that gets onto an AI journey often does it because, hey, he's doing it, so I've got to do it as well, right? Or I can see a lot of speak in the market about AI being the best thing in the world, and I've also got to do it. But there is really no vision or strategy around it when you embark. And my advice would be, this is just like any, I would say, like any other project, but for data projects, it becomes all the more interesting, right? Because you have to try and map it to your business processes, try and understand how do you find value, right? What are the goals for your analytics programs? Is it about preventing churn, or are you trying to deal with the increasing costs? Or are you talking about how can you increase your cross-sell opportunities? There are various goals that you could have for your AI programs, right? And as an organization, I think you need to look at what do you have today, data-wise, your aspirations-wise, your business aspirations-wise, and then map that across into building a roadmap for your AI program that will take you from point A to B. Like if you haven't started, how do you make your MVP so that you can prove some of that value and get the janta behind you, right? So that as you're growing up your AI practices. Yeah, so quite a few interesting angles for us to look into, I think, from a threats or challenges perspective.
True, Suraj. So the boundaries are getting fuzzy for real between any segments that we take, and the B2B, B2C, it's a thin line. So it's getting fuzzy with all the technology advancements that are coming in, and the reach that B2C companies are gaining into the market, and also talent. It's a big risk, obviously. Now, when B2B is ready to embrace AI, get into more advanced data analytics and AI, what are some of the big opportunities for B2B in this space?
Okay, that's good. So we're talking about where you could make a start as a B2B business, right? Okay, great. So I think a few areas, I mean, we touched upon operational efficiency to some extent, but probably not a lot. I see supply chain optimization as one of the key benefits that you're likely to get through better data and AI overall, right? And what do I mean by that? I mean, if you think about the recent project that we did around inventory management for a furniture retailer, right, out in the Middle East, that is all about trying to figure out what is it that you would have on your shopping list, right? So on your list of items within the store, but also in what quantities to try and maximize the profits that you make out of the business, right? So trying to figure out that assortment optimization answer that you have. Like, if you have a set amount of budget that you're going to invest in a business, which products would you have? So that inventory management and being able to achieve that through data science, I think is I want to say no-brainer, but is such an easier aspect that someone as a new entrant into the B2B, into data and AI from B2B can probably start to look at. Along the same lines, I think warehouse efficiency, where you think about how can I increase the speed of doing business so that you don't have a lot of dead stock sitting in your warehouses. How do you change some of the complexity of your business around warehousing, the different tasks that go around it? And probably this is not about intelligent models that you need to bring in, but probably more about automation that you can do so that you can remove the manual tasks behind it and make it so that it's much more easy flowing, right, as you go through. That could be a big element. And thus effectively you're reducing costs and probably even having much more happier customers through on-time delivery. So operationalizing that whole element, where you bring in a lot of efficiency around using data and AI, that's definitely one area for you to look at. Thinking wider, I think there are, again, a couple of projects that we worked on is all around churn prevention and trying to grow your market share through that process. Like, for example, obviously it's as simple as that. You either go and get new customers into your business, or you make sure that your current customers don't even go, right? So you keep them really happy. And there are really two elements to do it. One is keeping them happy through customer satisfaction. I think there are even statistics that go around that. 80% of your customers are more likely to buy from brands where they have had a great customer experience. So as long as you provide that experience like really high, how do you do that? Again, data and AI can help you with that, right? We can actually say, okay, these customers their behavior online or in a store or is of a certain style. Anyone who's coming in online is interested in X, Y, Z, and you can list down the products and you can look at how you showcase your capabilities much better, or even in store, or around that you can start to work around it. You can improve your decision making through the availability of better insights and reports, and that kind of give you a snapshot of how your business is doing. You can probably go for really targeted and effective marketing to your customers. So who are regular, frequent customers back with you, how do you make sure that you keep them on? So customer efficiency around all of these is one big side. And then the other that I said is actually around churn prediction, right? So if you can actually say, based on their behavior, if you're able to predict that a customer is likely to leave or likely to shop around, then you can probably do things to keep them active, right? And one area that I'm a big music fan, right? So I always go back to people and pick up this example of Spotify. I don't know if you use it regularly, but one big thing that I look out for on Spotify every Monday is a Discover Weekly aspect, right? Where Spotify is listening to all the different, or it tracks all the different music that I listen to, and then it's giving me insights into, hey, here are some new songs or new tracks that is along the lines of what you've listened to last week, and we think you will like, right? So as a consumer there, I'm talking about the B2C experience, right? As a consumer there, I'm able to relate to something that I have an experience that just makes it much more, specialized or, personalized for Siraj as an individual, right? And I think that's what we want to bring into the B2B world as well. So opportunity-wise, if I could summarize it in a one-liner, I'd say, look to the B2C space, right? See what they're doing, and anything that you can actually borrow in and kind of start to grow in your own area. So I think there's a lot of synergy that we can reuse.
Absolutely fantastic, Siraj. I think that was very much informative. Thank you very much for your time, Siraj.
Hey, thank you so much. It's been good to have this conversation. Thank you for having me.